Look how pretty they are. Take you for a fly-in. What we're going to do is we're going to put both of them on there at the same time. Yeah, exactly. It's called the Expedient method, or I call it Danny's method for a buddy of mine who passed on. But this is one of his favorite methods, quarter sawing small logs. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Sawn with Robert Milton. I'm Robert Milton, and you're at Hobby Hardwood. And this is a white oak log. We're going to quarter saw it, and it's small. It's a little bitty guy. About 17 inches. Traditional quarter sawing, and even the new types of quarter sawing, like on my jelly roll, you typically barrel the log into 8 facets. And those 8 facets are there to provide a reference edge as you rotate around. With the Expedient technique, you only have to do 4. Now this log had a lot of bell on it, so when I smooth this side down, it went to 4 straight faces. But if we look at the other side of the log, you'll see it still looks like a log that needs a few more facets put on it. Put a facet here, a gun barrel facet here, here, here. And it's called a gun barrel because that's basically what it used to look like, some of the old school gun barrels. And again, notice how small this guy is. 16 inches, somewhere in that range. Little bitty fella. You use less rotations, half the effort, or half the labor. The issue with it is, though, is that you do not get as high yield of quarter sawn lumber that you would with a jelly roll. So it's faster, but your yield is lower. On the other hand, sometimes that's not a problem because there's not a whole lot of yield in here anyway. Even if you're doing a jelly roll, up in the wedges, those boards are going to be small. The thing is, with the Expedient, those boards are going to be flat sawn. They'll still be usable as flat sawn, but they won't be usable as quarter sawn. And before we go any further, remember, the National Hardwood Lumber Association definition of quarter sawn lumber is heavy fleck on one face. It's medullary raise. It's not just because it's sawn at an angle. It's not all these nebulous definitions that you hear people talk about out on the interweb. It is pretty straightforward. You have to have ray fleck on one face. Significant ray fleck, a majority. And ray fleck is caused by cutting a log on its cracks. So when we're quarter sawing, we want to saw here, we want to saw there, we want to saw there. Basically what we want to do is we want to saw perpendicular to the growth rings, right about there. And it just so happens that these cracks that form almost always form perpendicular to the growth rings. And if you were to saw right through there, perfectly aligned with the center axis of the log, these boards, this board right here, would show significant ray fleck. Now, normal flat sawn lumber that doesn't show significant ray fleck, you're cutting this way, which is flat to the face, and that doesn't get you anything because you can see that the rays are here, and you're cutting across the rays. However, if you take these boards straight across the center, right there, this will be a quarter sawn board because the growth rings are going perpendicular. And if you take this board whoop, that board, and that board. Remember, you only got to have ray fleck on one face to meet the NHLA definition. If you're getting ray fleck on this face and this face, even if you're out of the fleck on this face, you'll still have it here. You're going to take 3 boards out of the center. Your pith is useless, but that board, and that board will be quarter sawn, that board, and that board will be quarter sawn. And then what we do is we will take these, and again, this board, and this board will be quarter sawn. And you'll have these weird ones up here, which are actually short flat sawn, and you will not get fleck on them. As I said, it's a very easy technique. It excels for manual mills. Your yield will go down, but your speed will go up. But once again, it's not something I like to do on big logs because I don't like the loss of yield. So on this side right here, we've got this crack. Remember, we're looking at the growth rings. You can see them very easily. I'm going to draw them with my professional lumber crayon. Whoop. And remember, perpendicular to the growth rings is what we're trying to do at all times. And in this case, our first cut will be basically, we're going to center that board if at all possible. And we're going to take one above, right here, one below. That will give us 3, those are called center boards. And again, these will be quarter sawn, assuming I've aligned the pith up. That'll be 3 right there. So once we take that one, we want to take that cut, get it off. All right, so let's stop here for a second. So this was the center, and you'll notice I've got decent fleck here. These are the medullary rays right here. This face is a quarter sawn board by NHLA standards because it has a majority of ray fleck on one face. NHLA rules is you really need 6 inches wide for true face grade. So anytime you get narrower than 6 inches, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot right at 6 inches. If I take another board out of that, then it'll be too narrow to meet the true spec of FAS. And plus, it's just a lot of woodworkers don't really want to buy anything that's less than 6 inches wide. It's just kind of hard to deal with. This is expedient, as few rotations as possible. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to simply come back and take 3 boards. Let's get one more. See these big cracks? So that's going to get, you'll have to cut that out. But you are getting a board there and a board there. And you can dry this board full width. In a lot of ways it'll help keep it straight because this will keep the boards from bowing out like a tuning fork. So this goes right on the drying stack. right here. So we're fixing to put it on right now. So this is what the center board looks like. Again, it's right down through the pith. Board here, board there. Nothing in the middle, that'll get cut out. As you get more and more perpendicular, you can see how much better the ray fleck looks. 3 full width quarter sawn boards, those are called the center boards. Those 3 boards will be split and trimmed into 6 well-formed quarter sawn boards after they've dried. So here is the reason we don't need to do 8 facets on the Expedient technique. We still need a reference edge, but when we cut the 4 opposing faces, this face, even though we took the center boards out, still can be used as a reference edge. We're going to put that edge and that edge to the bed or the other edge. It doesn't really matter. What we're going to do is we're going to put both of them on there at the same time. Playing with logs on the sawmill. So now you should be able to clearly see where I'm about to go with this. We took out those center boards. Now we got this thing stacked up face to face. You can see the circles, the lines that I drew. Now we know that if we were to take these boards, just like the last one, these will be quarter sawn. But what we're going to do is we're just going to start sawing down. But somewhere between here and here, we'll start to see quarter sawn. It'll be getting perpendicular enough to get quarter sawn wood. So we're taking 2 boards at a time. So instead of sawing the halves separately, we're going to be sawing them simultaneously. And this can be done quite easily on a manual mill. When I used to have a manual mill, I used this all the time. Did this all the time. You just got to make sure things are clamped up. The geometry just lends itself to those boards not being usable. So the reality is, in some ways, what we're doing with the Expedient technique is we're edging the cant to get to the usable wood. And if it was a bigger log, those would be usable. So we're going to cut here. We're going to see if we got anything. And those still may be usable at shorter lengths. I don't know. We'll see. Probably not the first couple. So you can see, sure enough, I am getting ray fleck. So we're definitely in it here. So these boards, remember where they are in the pattern, they're still at a pretty high angle. And again, if you'll notice how it's a narrow board, because it's a small log, I am going to try to salvage this guy. These 2 are not quarter sawn, but still somewhat usable boards. Remember how I was saying we need to get to FAS width. It needs to be 6 inches and wider. I'm starting to get into a vertical grain look. You can still see their vertical grain. I'm not really seeing any heavy fleck. Starting to see the first signs of it. So these would be considered rift sawn, but they're definitely not quarter sawn because there's not a heavy fleck. These are misses, but they're still 6 inches in wide. And remember, with the Expedient technique, you just gotta realize you're getting kind of a hybrid of everything, which really isn't that difference when you do the old school conventional quarter sawing technique. It only produces about a 70% yield, and right now I think that's what we're going to be doing with the Expedient technique. Of course, the jelly roll and the reverse roll does 100% typically, but it's not real good with small logs like this. That one's showing some fleck. This one's showing a lot. Now we know these guys have fleck on them because that's the other face of the board we just did. And we're still a little bit above horizontal. We're right about where we took the center board. So that'll be a good one. That'll be a good one. That'll be a good one, maybe. And then we're going to start running back out. Very few manipulations of the log house. Make sure you got a good grip. We know this board's quarter sawn. You can see the stress if nothing else in that slip plane or that edge plane like we like to see for flat boards. This one's still quarter sawn. You can see that stress as it opens up. Want to get one more. I'll pull these back as a group. These guys are very highly figured right here. So they're extremely quarter sawn. Look how pretty they are. Take you for a fly-in. This one's quarter sawn. There's fleck all through it on its face. Now we're starting to fall off. This one, yeah, I'd probably push it and say it is. But it's obvious we're getting out of it. We still have this many boards left. But that's an illusion because, yeah, on the big end we do. On the little end, we don't. You're gonna see me do something I never do. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to do it. Somebody can say they actually saw me use a cant hook on the YouTube. Kind of like overkill. I always figured it was called a cant hook because I can't never want to use it. If you haven't sawn doubles, well, it's a technique you need to learn. I don't know what else to say about it, but yeah, you need to learn how to do it. Again, you got to go slow. You do not want these guys to come out. Now, the closer you get to the bed, the more you can feel secure that they're not just going to pop. When you're doing doubles, it's not really a time to show off how fast you can saw, because things can get crazy in a hurry. You want to use the weight to try to keep the ones underneath flat and not popping. The last thing you want to do right here is remove these top boards. You need all the weight you can get to try to help those two bottom ones from holding up. You got one more cut. Cross your fingers. Gonna go a little slower. Feels good, feels good. Speed up, speed up, speed up. Faster, faster, everything's good. Not gonna pop. Done. Woo-hoo. Obviously these top two are dead and gone, just because again, you got a little bitty log. This guy, we can save him. This guy is still too narrow. I'm not gonna deal with it. He's gone. You guys can save him if you want to. I'm not gonna go to the trouble. Little bitty 4-inch board. I know that's not the waste of resources, blah, blah, blah. And it's certainly riffs on, pretty clean. I might be able to say that's quarter sawn. I'll worry about it later, but for right now, it's going on a stack. Maybe a bonus board, I don't know. And we know this one's gonna be good because we'd already seen this. So this was definitely quarter sawn. So this is how I quarter saw up small logs. The Danny Hamsley Expedient method. Now, before y'all give me a bunch of comments on that, he never claimed to invent it. So I'm pretty sure it came out some years earlier. I think this was actually not an unpopular way to do it back in the early 90s. Danny used it a lot, and he was such a good sawmiller. He's the one that convinced me that it was worth learning and putting it in my book of tricks. I should say my bag of tricks. So I always refer to it as the Hamsley Expedient method. I just says Danny's method, or the Danny Expedient method, or the Expedient method, or gee, I don't really want to quarter saw up this stupid small log, but I'm going to do it anyway. And dang it, Danny, I guess I'll use the technique you told me to use. When Danny would say you ought to give it a try, you ought to give it a try. And I'm saying you ought to give it a try. So Hamsley Hardwood is still in operation, even though Danny has moved on. If you Google it, Hamsley Hardwoods, I believe, is the webpage address. Give it a drop, say hi to the folks. If you're in that neighborhood, go buy some wood from them. They know what they're doing. They're good people. They produce good wood. And we will see you guys next week. Thanks for visiting our sawmill. Click on the links above to see more of our videos.